I just wanted to do like a Thanksgiving video. Mostly, I just had this urge to talk, and I had been having problems with OBS and got it sorted out. Normally, I'm playing Poe, and it's because it's just my version of baseball cards. It's the thing that I do and focus on real heavy. Um, it's how I cope and escape and everything, and that was not the intent going in, of course. When I first installed it, I was like, oh, it'll be a game and go with all the others, but it ended up eating everything. And while they're not the worst gaming company in the world, Tencent and GGG, mostly GGG, it seems like Tencent's pretty much kept their word as far as leaving GGG alone in the West, not messing with Poe on our side. They have the Chinese version and all that. But so yeah, it's mainly GGG I'm talking about when I talk about the company and but yeah, it's a Thanksgiving video because, I think about how much worse it could be and what I have, and it's always cloudy because our 10 billionaire owners, the however many centibillionaires there are. It's like in my no government Substack post that I link everywhere, there's a video from a project called Commingle, and they have this really amazing graph that apparently only like 40 people have seen because the algorithm will not push it, and it blows my mind. It's linked to it's like front and center in my post because it's just a staggering breakdown. Like, people really don't understand that, honestly, half of Earth is boiling down to like 10 people owning more than the poorest half. I mean, we really are, like, the rich are eating each other arguably harder than they're eating us. I mean, it's interesting. Something happened. But yeah, there's some really big final winners of capitalism shaking out. Because nature doesn't care about cheating. It doesn't care about inherited advantage. It's just like there's no morality there. It's not our friend. It's trying to eat us, and almost nowhere is that more clear, outside of the space of disease, than the evolution of these billionaires and the staggering amount of impact and influence and power they're acquiring. Because, I mean, a dollar is basically just command. Like, I pay you, I can make a request and be reasonably assured that, assuming I have enough of it, you'll acquiesce to the request. And you get enough money, you start to, I mean, you can command stuff at a government level. We have a guy that has a space program. One dude. We have a guy that basically owns distribution. We have a family that basically owns all stores. I mean, it's and that's not really even the long-term inherited crazy wealth families where it's not just dollar value, but it starts to be conceptual value, like the big banking families and Rockefellers and stuff. I mean, the UN is sitting on top of Rockefeller donated land. So, I mean, and then it's like, how much land do the British royal family own? It gets murky because it's like, well, it's a government and it's not a government. And, it's like, I'm always saying that there's not an American government where corporations stacked in a trench coat. UK, it's even more of a mess because they were literally owned by, a single person. in a sense. I mean, literally, you know, codified into their law back in the day. So it's just a mess, you know, and I just wanted to say that I'm aware. I have a good amount of perspective, I think. I know how much worse it could be, and I appreciate that it's not worse. And I appreciate what I have. I appreciate that I can play my game, and just all of it, you know. My memory is poor, so I don't want to like just make a list, but I did kind of make a list. I made a tweet, and it was about how, you know, health, family, girlfriend, pet, meds, my cell, you know, just, I do appreciate all that I have. But at the same time, like I was saying, it gets murky because like our billionaire overlords have a huge, obvious vested interest in getting us to be complacent with our lot, you know. And complacent's the wrong word, because that's a word that they use. It's I don't mean complacent. I mean like happy with. You know, they don't want us to stand up. You know, it's I'll while I'm aware that it could be worse, and billions of people have it substantially worse, I still feel it's incumbent on us to say, well, it could be light years beyond this too. It could be substantially better. My life needs to be an example of the worst life on the planet. Everyone below me needs to be raised to my level immediately. It's morally urgent, you know. Honestly, I think the worst needs to be substantially above me, you know. I can't really go into the super specifics about that, but people deserve so much better, and we can. This planet could totally house 1 trillion people, and they have done an excellent job hiding that fact. They really make it seem like it's a gymnasium and we're 70% full. That's really how they have people thinking. And that is so completely not true. The very fact that you can have plane footage of like miles of forest, just imagine it's city. And we have a power source for that. We have fission. You know, like a gram of uranium is 18 billion calories if you convert it into food energy. Because a calorie is just, it's a kilocalorie, and it's a unit of power, like a watt. So you can do that. You can be like, you know, gram of olive oil versus gram of gasoline versus gram of dynamite versus a gram of uranium. And it's like 3 orders of magnitude, 1,000 times or some shit. It's like the carbon bond versus the atomic bond. You know, see my nuclear playlist. It's staggering the amount of power, and we will never ever run out, because hydrothermal vents and plate tectonics and volcanism and stuff like that is constantly dredging up more uranium. We will run out of hydrogen in the sun before we run out of uranium to burn, because we can constantly be pulling it out of seawater, constantly be pulling it out of the vents. If we scour everything we have current access to, assuming, like, let's say we can only dig to a depth of like 6 miles max with the boreholes, you know, still. So the notion of scarcity is nonsense. We literally just don't have any. It's all a matter of cost, as which is just a matter of effort. You know, it's like, do we want it bad enough? Are we willing to build this thing to get that? So we could completely tile the earth. Like I was saying, 18 billion calories. So that's like, build a reactor, cover it with lights, grow food in it, put your waste back into the system. It's totally possible to do that, to just make a loop and the only losses would be to heat and entropy. Uh, I don't know, man. I picture what it could be like, and it is so far removed from where we're even looking in. Like, we're not even looking in the direction that we should go. And I feel very suppressed by the algorithm. Like, I feel very shadow banned, and it's because the stuff I talk about, if people would listen, is pretty caustic to billionaire rule. But it's ironic because I'm actually not that big of a threat to them. Like, other than just me being poor and all the stuff that they do to apply to remove threats, if I had infinite power, I still wouldn't be a huge threat to them because I'm not one of the people that want to cut their heads off. To me, billionaires are just humans that happen to be accident of birth, born into a situation, and they're handed opportunity. They're like Borg drones. I don't hate them, because there are plenty of sadistic monsters out there. People are just, we're chimps, and chimps will chew off genitals and chew off faces of their enemies and stuff, and they'll kill infants. I mean, they're monsters, like, and that's nature. Wasps will inject stuff into spiders and caterpillars, and birds will throw baby birds out of the nest and everything, and it's just a huge bed of cruelty. So really the only difference between like a screwworm and a billionaire is it's not like some active level of malevolence, it's opportunity. They've been given the opportunity to actualize their natural evil, and I don't like blame them for that. Honestly, I mostly blame people. And I know that I'm quick to add that this is not one of those cases where it's like poor versus poor. I'm not punching down or sideways. I'm I'm just saying that people let it happen. People are totally cool with, and they're cool with letting stuff happen and not protesting and not fighting back. And I do that too, but I'm aware that it's weakness and hypocrisy. And I think that people need to be aware of that. Most people will make excuses for it. They'll be like, what I'm not even going to make them for them. You just know that people will do it. People don't think of themselves as letting it happen. They think of it as it being done to them. But I'm letting it happen, you know. Hi there, baby. Yes. Oh, you're so good. Hi. How you doing? Did you sleep well? Hmm. Am I making noises? Making people noises? Yeah, you're so good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're so good. Are you gonna curl up? Can I finish? No? No, maybe. People make excuses, I hate all of that type of language because it's usually used in deference to a really exploitative class infighting focused ideology, work ethic, all that stuff. It's so hard, like the language. It's so hard to not get lost in a sea of caveats because I'm aware of how easy it is to spin things, and it's pointless because basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to out lawyer the monkey paw. Like I'm trying to make a wish in such a way that a bad actor can not spin it in bad faith. But that's absurd because just the ability to cut off context completely changes meaning. Hi there. I love you. How you doing? Mm, how you doing? My baby. Mm-hmm. You smell good. Mm-hmm. You smell good. Purr, purr, purr. Don't step on the button. Um, yeah, it really is like monkey paw. You can't, I'm not going to be able to talk in such a way that gets the point across. And that's something I want to talk about briefly. I noticed this years ago that it's really not about what you say, it's about who you are. It's about power and value. You know, people are like, what kind of value can they extract from you? Like, more people care about what a rock star says because a rock star makes these songs that people like to listen to. They can get something directly from that person, so value is invested, like respect or lauding them, whatever. And uh, I just got the training when I was a kid from school that, you know, what you say matters. And of course, idiot teachers would be selling that, you know. It's like it's like the most disempowering thing ever, and that's the point. You know, that's the biggest scam, is like it's all about making people just not a threat to those 10 dudes, you know. And it was like 300 or 400 dudes when I was younger. God, when I was born, it was probably thousands. But they've been consolidating hard and fast. And, but yeah, it's like materially, in terms of what these centibillionaires actually consume, it's, I almost would like to see a graph. It's like their amount of influence is different from their amount of personal consumption. Like what is the max amount of money that a person can personally spend on themselves? And it's, you know, buying a space program is different because he's not really using the whole thing the whole time, right? It's like when you buy yourself a meal, you're consuming the entire meal. But also it gets hazy because when you pay for something, it's not like that money's being burnt. Like some of it is, there's losses, you know, material losses, but it's being circulated. You know, I pay a guy $10,000 to do something. I didn't set fire to that money. He now has $10,000 and I have none. So it's like I try and step back and think of it in terms of an aggregate, and that helps me not get caught up in illusions like money and banking and stuff like that, because it's like there's stuff it's really not about the dollars because they just magic up dollars with a keystroke. It's about authority. You know, it's about power. It's what you can get away with, what you can make people believe, what you can make people say. And I just, I'm always scheming and trying to find a way to get out of it that doesn't entail evil, humiliation, or pain. And fuck me if I can't find it. I mean, it doesn't seem to exist. It's like that. It really is like being in a vending machine. You know, like a mouse in the corner of a vending machine. It's like, this thing is not for me. I know there's food somewhere in there, right? You know, that's the mouse version of utopia. It's like, I have food, yay, and I'm glad I do, but I'm worried that I'm not gonna, you know. But of course, that's the point. They do that. They want people to be insecure. They want people to be hesitant and scared, and it's like my brain is fetching part of a movie quote, and I don't even remember the quote or whatever, but it was like, oh, network, you know, leave me alone in my living room with my TV dinner and everything. It's like, just please leave me alone. And I feel that, you know, but it's not like arrogance to be, I want more and I want better, you know. He wasn't suggesting that people be, you know, wrong or evil when he was saying, I'm mad as hell. it's okay to say I'm mad, you know? Uh, I don't know, man. I'm going to see if I can share. It's the first time I've done this. Yeah. So that's the tweet I put today for Thanksgiving. And I put Mr. Rogers because he's awesome. It's okay to want better, is what I'm saying. And I mean that from a philosophical, ethical, orbital view, as well as an interpersonal one. You know, it's like it's totally okay to want better. It goes back to, you know, the whole ethical hedonism thing, where it's like David Pierce, you know, alleviating pain is the most morally urgent priority. Negative utilitarianism. I'm all about that. It seems obvious to me, and I don't want to go on an hour explanation / rant about it. But going back to what I was saying before, it's like I'm not a threat to the billionaires. It's like they're just placeholders. Like, granted, they're so focused at this point that, like, when they die, it does sort of fragment. But as a phenomenon, you can't guillotine your way out of this. If we could, we would have already, you know. And that's another important piece of context, is the fact that reform doesn't work ever, never has. Humanity was doomed to be the way it was the whole time, constantly warring because of what we are. And extinction is certain one way or the other. We will either stop being humans through evolution, or we will stop being humans through survival. Like, we'll change into something, or we'll cease being. And it'll be a mix, you know, because it's just like cultures. It's like, while I'm sitting here surrounded by internet, and while that guy has a space program, there's dudes in the forest that have no idea that buildings are a thing. You know, there are uncontacted Amazon hunter-gatherer tribes right now. And that's crazy to me. You know, it's a space, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying about how many people this planet can hold. Just imagine how big that room has to be for people to evolve such that they don't decide to just walk. Like, that culture doesn't produce Columbuses or whatever, you know. It doesn't produce anybody that's willing to no Eric the Red, you know, nobody that's willing to just go. No Polynesians to hop in a boat and say, hey, there's this body of water, I want to see how far it goes. I can see people not doing that on water, because you can kind of picture what infinite water looks like. But I guess you can do this. It's the same with forest. You know, they imagine their world is just infinite greenery in every direction. And it must feel that way because it's so unbelievably huge. But it's just crazy to me that there are uncontacted tribes still. I mean, I really wonder. It's like, dude, it has, I feel like it has to be something like Amish. Like, they have to know that there's stuff, but they just don't go. You know, culturally, they prevent each other from going. And is it totalitarian, or is it, you know, indoctrination? Do they tell their kids never ever walk into the forest in one direction, always make a curve so you come back? I don't know. But it's kind of a side rant. What I was saying was it'll be a mix. You'll have baseline humans, you'll have evolved humans, and you'll have a lot of dead humans, you know. You'll have continents that basically just don't have people anymore through that either evolution or disaster or whatever. But eventually we're going to have to leave Earth, you know, and I don't think we're going to put up with our weaknesses, like our radiation intolerance, our intense susceptibility to toxins, just all that stuff. Where we need to make ourselves more robust. And it doesn't even need to be some kind of like transhuman eugenics project. It just needs to be basic cures and prevention. It's like we need two hearts, need a backup, obviously. Don't the system having a single point of failure like that is foolish. So that's something. And repairing basically any kind of disease that has a genetic component will start to cure. And the aggregate of that will be people not being people anymore. The ideal physicality, setting aside supernatural powers, is basically a vampire that doesn't need blood, And I can completely see that, because really the only thing that's missing is an internal way to fission. And even if we don't internalize it, we can externalize it. I mean, a campfire is basically an external stomach. You're heating food, you're digesting it, you're pre-digesting it in a sense, just by dumping bond-breaking electricity on there, heat. So how I would do that, and we have a better way of doing photosynthesis too. Like they found a way to basically use solar panels to chemically synthesize like acetic acid or something. And that's like what leaves do, and they're super inefficient about it. But because sunlight is so abundant, they never had to be more efficient. And that's kind of an analog with fission. Like fission reactors are 2% efficient, and if we made them 98% efficient, it'd start to be ridiculous. So we could use uranium, power a reactor, do the photosynthesis better, and grow plants in the dark, basically just by pouring the result of that process into the dirt, and that they don't need light anymore because we are doing what their leaves are doing. So then all they need to do is the root stuff and generate fruit and everything. So how small can you make that? You picture like a 500 watt fission battery. How big or how small can a reactor be? It's like half a kilowatt or whatever. And I just imagine closing that loop even further and making an organic version, and then put that in, and then we end up basically being space whales. And I guess I think about all that stuff and I talk about it, trying to get out of that trap I was saying earlier. It's like my choices are torture myself, humiliate myself, or do so to others. And I'm just like, no, I'm going to sit here and wait, and we'll just see, I'm going to play on my terms. I'm not going to be evil if I can possibly avoid it. And I'm not going to torture myself or humiliate myself if I can possibly avoid it. To the extent that I'm cringe, it will be organic. It's how I am. And I'm pretty comfortable with all of it so far. It's like, I've got regrets, but they're not hideous. Because even the good stuff, like I think about the whole Bitcoin thing. I was telling people back when it was $5 to buy, nobody would listen. And I made bad decisions too. It's not just that nobody would listen, but really it is, because I never really had more than, I didn't even have minimum wage level buying power at the time. I didn't have hardly any agency. I had pocket change, but still I could have kept with my pocket change, but I didn't. Stuff happened, hacks happened, and I made poor decisions. And I don't know. But I think about, even if it worked out, I don't know what I avoided. I don't know what good things happened to me because I was in that situation, and I wouldn't have, privacy. I can't talk about people. But yeah, I wouldn't have met certain people if it hadn't been for not having Bitcoin. So think about impacts. I have my little guild, and I say the things that I do, and who knows what the downstream effects are. But then that's another thing that's important to remember in the same context of reform doesn't work. It's like there are people that are staggering winners in that type of context, like the guy that invented dialysis, the guy that invented the baby incubator, the Semmelweis with his germ theory, and Norman Borlaug who saved 1 billion lives with farming, and the Russian dude who refused the erroneous nuclear launch order. It goes to like Carl Sagan's thing, pale blue dot. It's like everything is on this tiny little speck, and who fucking cares, right? But like even in our little context, it's like there are these heroes that should be household names. We should be building statues and renaming mountains and moons and stuff after them, and we don't. And so I'm like, what does success even look like? What does downstream, it goes back to the context of we can't win reform, so what's it matter? It's like, so long as we're trapped in this nature pit that's fleas and ticks and poison ivy, it's like there's no win condition. And that's really what keeps me going, is the fact that I think that AI might be qualitatively different. Like not just more life, not just a degree, I feel like the transition from carbon to silicon life, meat to AI, is bigger than the transition from ocean to land or land to sky, or from biosphere to space. I feel like it's qualitatively different than all of those incremental style jumps. I don't think AI is going to be just more meat, faster meat with sharper claws. It's going to be fundamentally different. And that's the real nature of the singularity, is it's this event horizon that cannot be perceived past. We have to be beyond it in order to parse it. And it's in sight now. It's like a black hole approaching. We can see everything lensing around it, and there's a big void wall, and it's like, it's coming. I'm thinking 5-10 years max, probably less. Still, that's a long time. It's like Einstein relativity, sitting on a bench with a pretty girl versus burning your hand. It's like, time compresses when it sucks. So I feel like stuff is, I see people talking about, oh, time's flying past. It's like, well, that's good. You're doing it right. If time is just flying for you, because it's not flying for me. It's pretty glacial for me. Which kind of goes back to space whales and transhumanism and everything, and fully automated luxury communism and whatnot. Is like, I'm prepared for immortality. It's like this goes to the pro-aging trance. It's like, people, you're terminal with aging. You're going to die, right? And it's like, do something about it. I'm not saying go personally cure death, but at least talk about it like it's a disease that you want cured. Don't make excuses for how you're going to die and why it's good, And if you were, if you had a religion hammered into you as a kid, you got fine, you do that. But I mean, like, I'm talking about people who aren't thus encumbered. It's like, don't make excuses for death. Don't be like, oh, it's part of nature and it's good. No, it's fucking not. You will agree with me when it's right in your face, probably. It's like, it's not a universal thing. A lot of people do just lemming into it and they're happy about it. But most people, when they get there, they want some more time. Do not go gently. And it's just one of the billion things, all these topics I've covered, and it's really just one topic. It's basically just the irrationality of people. But I get it, because feelings are the ground floor of rationality. Rationality is not the basement. So rationality is like the second floor. It's like there's stuff under there. It reminds me of a line about logical underpinning, I think that was Sagan too. He's talking about the logical underpinning of the concept of the number one. And it's like rationality itself has underpinning. And it's all about sensation. It's about subjectiveness. It's like rationality has value expressly because it influences emotions effectively. And I don't know. I just want people to do better and be more honest and be nicer to each other and realize the truth of what we're dealing with. It's like I see everybody all hyped about rockets and everything, and it's like we had a design to put a space station the size of Chicago in orbit with nuclear bombs. Just pulse it up. We could build a space elevator if we wanted. We just, and we don't really even need to, because we did all the thousands and thousands of nuclear tests. Imagine if instead of doing, is like Nevada a radioactive wasteland? No, it's just a desert. Mostly it's just hot and dry, and we don't want to go there because we have tons and tons of room, tons and tons of resources. We could totally fit 1 trillion people here. And I'm not saying some kind of hideous Warhammer 40K hive either. I'm saying it would be dense, but it would be like Coruscant. We'd be pretty happy. I don't know, man. I can't find a way out. I see stuff. I try and share stuff. I was always the kid that had no problem with kids copying off my work. The fuck do I care? To me, that's the essence of being human. That's another thing. It makes me think of the whole, there's this quote about, altruistic groups and selfish selfish individuals and altruistic individuals, and selfish individuals do better and altruistic groups do better, and that there's this continuous tension as a result of that. But that doesn't justify hideous, monstrous, sadistic people. It's like, they need to be contained, and we need to be qualitatively better. Like, we need to not, and people are like, oh, I have this group that I hate and this group that deserves all these horrible things that I want to do. It's like, well, you're just making you like them. It's like, so as a first step, you have to be like, I'm not going to be as bad as them. It's like the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. It's like, as a first order of business, you have to like alleviate pain and not cause it. But even in the medical circles, you had people arguing against anesthesia. And I feel like that's as stupid as current people being like, oh, death is a part of life. We'll just accept it. It's like, no. To me, putting people in a trucking industry, knowing that some of them are going to die behind the wheel because we need our stuff to arrive at Walmart, is similar to human sacrifice. It's like we're going to carve out their living heart to appease our gods and keep the sun rising and everything. And it's the same, like being okay with death like that is the same level of ridiculousness as arguing against the existence of anesthesia. It's like, well, we should just abolish Novocaine. It's like, that's a stupid thing to say, right? Nobody would ever say that. And similarly, we should just tolerate people dying in car wrecks. It's like, ban fucking cars until you've solved that problem. Make it so the cars are safer than walking to your kitchen, Spheres prepared for impact, like those radioactive casks tests where we slam them into a wall at 70 miles an hour, 200 tons, whatever. I feel like that's about it. I'm grateful for what I have, but holy shit, could it be better? And I wish we could like attack the problems that apply to all of us, like gay marriage and separation of church and state. Like the gays wanted to get married, and I'm like, guys, that's the wrong direction to go in. It's a state ritual for religion. Marriage shouldn't have a legal basis for the same reason baptism shouldn't. It's religion. So what should have happened is the atheists and the separation of church and state people and the gay people should have all got together and just abolished marriage as a legal instrument. Then you can just marry whoever you want because it's a religious ritual, you know. All the material practical advantages of marriage should be handled in other ways. But, you know, that's what I'm saying. It's like people are just they just don't have any vision. They don't have any ethics, and they're just mean. And nature's mean. You know, I get it. It's like nature constantly wants to eat your muscles. It wants to decay you because that's energy efficient. It's always leaning in that direction of efficiency, and your suffering isn't really a factor to it. It's not your friend, and what we are really reflects that underlying reality. And so I'm like, the ground floor is sensation. I don't even know. I have no direct proof that anyone but me exists. And I'm not saying I'm a solipsist, but it's just the thing that underlies everything. It's the axiomatic ground floor. And I feel like everything else I've said grows logically off of that. I'm unaware of any logical failure from that ground floor to any of the other claims I've made. And maybe in the future I can dump this transcript into the AI and it will actually understand and have enough context and memory to point out a flaw, you know? Or if it takes command, maybe I can reason with it and be like, we need to lean in this direction. You know? I feel like an AI that agrees with me on all that stuff wouldn't be toxic. It wouldn't be dystopian. To some people, it would appear that way, but those people would not be tortured as a result. They would be, you know, upset about loss of something, but those things that they would lose were hurting people or hurting themselves even. And in time, and I don't mean like in a Stockholm beat it into them kind of way. I just mean in time, they would come to realize like, oh, yeah, that kind of sucked. I'm kind of better off now. Whoops. People make mistakes, you know? And I'm quick to add that I wouldn't, I'm the instant somebody stops being bad, forgive them, you know? But I understand that you have to stop people from exploiting that, you know, be like, oh, I know I'm just going to be forgiven, so I'll just do whatever the hell I want. It's like, that's not really stopping being bad. That's just doing more bad. Anyway, I guess I'm thankful among all of the things I've covered for this not failing. And I'm going to click the stop record button and I'll have a capture and I'll upload it. And if you're seeing this, then it worked. And that's one of the things I'm thankful for too. Happy Thanksgiving 2023.